4,000 years ago, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, farmers noticed a strange, thick, black substance oozing slowly from the cracked earth. They had no idea what it was, treating a material that now powers global industry as a mere local oddity. The Sumerians began experimenting with this natural bitumen and quickly discovered a practical use. It repelled water, so they smeared it over their wooden boats. These waterproofed vessels survived much longer, allowing them to expand their river trade networks. The material eventually made its way to Egypt, where embalmers integrated it into the preservation of bodies for the afterlife. In fact, the Arabic word for natural bitumen was mumia, which is exactly where the word mummy comes from. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in the Sichuan region of China, people drove long, hollow bamboo pipes into the ground to capture natural gas and oil for heat and light. Across the Mediterranean, Greek physicians were applying it to the skin to treat wounds and joint conditions. For thousands of years, multiple early civilizations simply scavenged this sticky resource from surface puddles. They used it to seal ships, preserve kings, and treat skin, completely unaware of its actual origins or the massive, concentrated energy trapped inside. Ask someone how that energy formed, and they'll likely say it comes from dinosaurs. But this is a pervasive myth. Crude oil predates the dinosaurs by hundreds of millions of years. The actual source lies between 300 and 400 million years ago. Ancient oceans were teeming with microscopic marine organisms, like plankton and algae. When those organisms died, they sank to the bottom of the sea. In this cross-section, you can see how their biological remains were buried under accumulating silt and sand, trapped by millions of years of heavy sedimentary rock. Simply burying them wasn't enough. The extreme weight of the Earth creates intense heat and pressure. This bakes the organic matter into a solid, waxy substance called kerogen. The exact temperature dictates what happens next. When the Earth's heat pushes that kerogen between 60 and 120 degrees Celsius, it cracks. It transforms into crude oil. Because it is lighter than water, it seeps upward through porous rock until an impermeable rock dome traps it in massive underground pools. Without knowing it, humanity built its earliest cities directly over these geological vaults. They were sitting on top of millions of years of ancient, trapped solar energy. The pressure to finally dig into those vaults came during the 19th century Industrial Revolution. Exploding urban populations desperately needed nighttime illumination. The standard fuel was whale oil, but severe overhunting made it dangerously scarce and incredibly expensive. In 1846, a Canadian geologist named Abraham Gessner offered a solution. He discovered how to distill a clean-burning liquid fuel from crude oil, which he named kerosene. It was the perfect substitute, provided someone could find enough crude oil to mass-produce it. The supply problem was solved in 1859 by a retired railway worker named Edwin Drake. He traveled to Titusville, Pennsylvania, and began drilling. Looking at this primitive wooden derrick, at just 69 feet deep, Drake hit a pressurized reserve. He proved that massive quantities of oil could be intentionally pumped from deep underground. The aftermath was chaotic. Thousands of prospectors rushed into Pennsylvania, instantly transforming quiet farmland into loud, volatile boomtowns. Farmers became millionaires overnight, and a frantic race to drill the next big well began. With deep earth drilling, oil evolved into a vital industrial fuel, ending the thousands of years spent merely scavenging the surface. While thousands gambled their savings on the unpredictable chance of striking oil, one man took a different approach.
Zooming in on his face, John D. Rockefeller realized true wealth lay in controlling the refinement process rather than gambling on the chaotic risks of drilling. In 1870, he founded Standard Oil. He avoided the chaos of drilling and instead invested heavily in physical infrastructure. Panning across this massive industrial footprint, he built enormous refineries capable of turning raw crude into usable goods like kerosene and lubricants at a massive scale. Then he executed a ruthless logistical strategy. He negotiated secret, discounted shipping rates with the railroads. As the railway lines concentrate on the map, his transport costs plummeted. He slashed his product prices so low that competitors either went bankrupt or were forced to sell their operations to him. The scale of consolidation was staggering. Within just 10 years, as the map transitions to this pie chart, Standard Oil controlled a full 90% of all refined oil in the United States. The government eventually stepped in. In 1911, the Supreme Court ordered Standard Oil to split into smaller companies to restore competition. But the breakup actually multiplied the combined stock value. Rockefeller retained shares in all the spin-offs, making him the richest individual in history. Rockefeller proved a terrifying modern truth. Whoever acts as the gatekeeper to refined energy dictates the terms of the entire economy. By the late 19th century, electricity began replacing kerosene for lighting. The internal combustion engine then redirected oil's utility toward generating physical motion. Looking at the fragile design of the 1886 Benz patent motor wagon, this transition opened a new chapter for the resource. Then came Henry Ford. In 1908, he launched the Model T. As we see the factory assembly line in motion, Ford mass-produced cars, making them affordable for the average citizen. Trucks and tractors soon followed, permanently embedding oil consumption into daily life. As global demand skyrocketed, geological surveys revealed the largest reserves were not in America. In 1908, a massive field was tapped in Iran, and in 1938, Saudi Arabia struck vast quantities of crude. Notice the towering metal derrick completely dominating the desert landscape beside traditional transport. By the mid-20th century, oil had transcended commercial enterprise. It was now the indispensable geopolitical heartbeat of the modern world. The nations sitting on top of these reserves soon realized the absolute leverage they held over the global economy. In 1960, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and Venezuela formed OPEC. Looking at the delegates sitting around this table, control over global energy supplies officially shifted from independent drillers to sovereign nation-states. That leverage was weaponized in 1973. Amidst a geopolitical conflict in the Middle East, Arab-producing nations enacted an embargo. They slashed production and cut off their oil supply to the West. The economic fallout was immediate. Focusing on the $3 limit sign, massive fuel shortages created miles-long lines of panicked drivers. Manufacturing costs spiked and inflation surged globally. The crisis proved a terrifying reality. Looking at this stark no gas sign at an empty station, without this single resource, modern industry halts, food distribution fails, and daily life stops. The same sticky puddle used to waterproof ancient wooden boats was now capable of bringing global civilization to its knees. We tied our entire modern existence to a finite resource that takes hundreds of millions of years to create in the deep earth. As the heavy black drop falls, humanity's greatest engine of progress has now become its most inescapable trap.